Welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and today we're going to talk about what was the most soul-crushing thing you've ever been told or heard. Serious. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. How can she be my wife? I have no idea who she is, said my husband of 8 years after a bad car wreck and 4 weeks in a coma. He'd lost about 12 years of memories, including our whole relationship. We got divorced 2 years after, as his memories never returned. My mom once told me, "You wouldn't be a very good mother. Your sister would be much better." I always loved and worked with children. My sister is more of an animal person. It crushed me because I always dreamed of being a mother, and I still think about that comment made years ago when my boyfriend brings up the children topic. Woken in the middle of the night to a phone call from an anonymous, kind nurse who said, "I regret to inform you, but your mother passed away at 11:40 p.m. She was not alone. I held her hand." I was at school, and I was called out of lesson because one of my friends was crying her eyes out. The teacher said she only felt comfortable telling me what was wrong, and then my friend didn't want to say it out loud, so all she said was, "I told you before." It was then I realized that my friend said when we were on a school trip, I tried to kill myself once. It completely flew over my head at the time, and I feel so bad for it. Then I had to tell the teacher because I didn't want her doing anything stupid over the weekend. I then had to sit in a sort of therapy session with her where I had to hear how she tried to jump off of a bridge. It was so heartbreaking, but I had to keep myself together. It's horrible what children at that age of 12 try to do and why they do it. They shouldn't feel that way. I had a close friend group, and I left to go put something up. I came back and heard them say annoying, so I of course asked who or what was annoying. They said, "You." "Me?" I said. Completely crushed me, they also told me that. No one really likes me. Yeah, that really did it, and I'm a lot different now. I'm also kind of glad that happened because now I'm a lot different. When my grandpa told me I wasn't good enough, I was always never a girly girl, but not quite a tomboy. I was really close to him, but he was old school. As I grew up, he started to realize that I wasn't changing in the right way. He kept telling me to use my lady voice, to sit ladylike, eat ladylike, and do ladylike things. He had enough when he saw me with my animals being not gentle, when they were stubborn and getting dirty and liking it. He got mad and yelled at me after when no one was around. It hurt because I always thought he would love me no matter what. Then I found out that there were conditions to his love. I have difficulties reaching out to people, but I'm very lonely. I have a few friends I've known since I was 13, and we hang out off and on throughout the year. One day I saw that a brewery in our area was having a film night where they show movies on a big inflatable screen in front of the bar. I was excited about it because they were showing Beetlejuice because it was October, and it's one of my favorite movies. I didn't want to go alone, so I worked up the courage to ask a couple of friends if they wanted to go with me. I even told them they could bring other people and we could make it a group thing. One of my friends said they'd come because they'd never seen Beetlejuice before. So we met up and he brought another person along. So, not really a group, but I'm always down to meet new people, and I thought the guy was a little dumb, but nice enough and entertaining. We got drinks beforehand, and my friend mentioned in passing that he'd broken up with a longtime girlfriend, and I was shocked. They'd been together for like 10 years. So I said I was sorry that happened, and he said he wasn't, so I dropped it. I figured if he needed to talk about it, he would. I had a lovely time. I enjoyed watching Beetlejuice in an audience, and I love watching movies with people who haven't seen them yet. I like their reactions. We chatted about the movie as it happened, and when it ended, I even suggested we meet up again the next time they played a good movie. I gave my friend a goodbye hug and left feeling pretty good about the outing. I'm proud of myself for making it happen. Then I found out a few weeks later that my friend and the guy he brought had been talking shit about me to a mutual friend. He was bragging about how desperate I acted after I found out him and his girlfriend split up, and how I was so obviously into him that it was pathetic. It completely crushed my spirit. All I'd wanted was a nice time out watching one of my favorite movies with a friend who'd never seen it. I don't flirt well, and I would have never tried when he was so recently broken up with. Plus, I have a boyfriend I've lived with for 4 years. I got so angry and embarrassed when I found out how he talked about me that I cried and didn't get over it for weeks. I never confronted my friend either. He still doesn't know that I know. I haven't tried to organize any kind of outing with anyone since, and I've never gone back to that brewery or its movie nights. You can go to the movies. I go to the movies by myself all the time. And a lot of people are jerks, but there are also great people in this world. Hold fast. You'll find them. They won't believe her when my older brother was talking to his girlfriend about the possibility of both of them to SA me. Then, what if she tells your parents? Locked the door, called my boyfriend, packed an overnight bag, and only returned to move my stuff out. Because it's true. They would not have believed me. They never did in the past anyway, so why would they now? My mom has been sexualizing my body ever since I was a little girl, and I don't think she will ever stop. The other day I was wearing a bikini in the hot tub, and I bent over to the edge to grab my phone. She told me not to do that in front of my dad because he wouldn't be able to resist grabbing it being my behind. She then continued and said she wouldn't blame my dad for sexually assaulting me and would let him do it. It's so disappointing to hear this from your own mother, and I'm angry and humiliated by the comments she made. It hurts more when she knows I was sexually abused for 3+ years by a close family friend. It breaks my heart when I say I don't love her, and I honestly would report her for the things she's done if I wasn't her daughter, but I think society forces me to still love her because she's my mother. I lived on an Alaskan island for a summer job, so lived with all coworkers. I was upstairs and I overheard everyone downstairs having a sort of conference about my snoring. People defending me against my roommate. Everyone on the island knew I snored because of her, but she never talked to me, so I could buy nasal strips or something. After that got tested, turns out I have severe sleep apnea and now use a CPAP. It was so embarrassing and it was crushing because I couldn't do anything about it, and I felt so bad. Less what I heard and more what I saw. I found out my stepdad was cheating on my mom one day when I was 14. I waited a few hours for my mom to get home, and when I showed her what I found, she took a deep breath and walked outside into the driveway. I've never seen such a visible heartbreak, and my own heart has never hurt so much for my mom. Thankfully, now 5 years later, they've worked through it, but I don't think my mom will ever be the same. I'm a physical therapist assistant, and one day at my previous job, rehabilitation nursing home, I was assigned a lady who had been sexually assaulted at some point in her life. One of my goals with her was to increase her standing tolerance because she would get tired so easily she could barely stand for more than 10 seconds. So, one day, I bring her to the parallel bars, and after one stand, she asks if we can stop the entire session there. Now, usually I'll encourage a patient to just rest for as long as they need to instead of stopping the whole session, so I calmly suggested she just take a break and that we could try again in a few. But she insisted that she wanted to stop for the day, and just as I had finished explaining that it would be a waste of a session, she looked me straight in the eyes and said, "See, this is what I've been saying. You insist on doing something to me that I don't want, no matter how many times I say no, and that is rape." I was shocked, but somehow managed to keep a calm look on my face. I took a literal second to gather myself and told her I'd bring her back to her room. As we waited for the elevator, she looked at me again and said, "Thank you for letting me vent that out to you. I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable." I told her, "Of course," and brought her back to her room. I still think about that moment to this day, and unfortunately, she never made enough progress to the point where we would have been able to discharge her safely. So she ended up leaving against medical advice. So this story brings up a good question, though it may be a bit of a hot button topic. Do you guys have an opinion on self-euthanizing? What do you think? I work in diagnostic imaging at a hospital, and our facility deals with a lot of terminal or very ill patients that are fighting for their lives and come to us for monitoring of the progression of their issues in that environment. Naturally, we have some very morose and soul-crushing conversations with patients, especially when a lot of them are tired of fighting and being in pain and are barely hanging on. The first thing that comes to mind is a woman a few months ago that had been fighting with cancer for a very long time and was in for a CT scan of her latest cancerous threat, which I think was a metastatic lung cancer. She had horrible veins from being dehydrated and extensive chemotherapy, and we barely established an IV 3 difficult bloody attempts later. Before we gave her contrast, I told her as always that we have to acknowledge that There's always a chance she could have a life-threatening reaction to the dye, but she would be sent to urgent care immediately in the worst-case scenario for emergency treatment, and I need your permission to carry on." She kinda quietly laughed and said she had the dye so many times that she wasn't worried at all. She looked like she wanted to say something else, so I gave her a few seconds, and she finally turned to me and said, "You know what? If I do react, I don't want you to save me. I'm so tired. Maybe it's just for the best if I go that way instead of my cancer finishing the job. Yeah. Please just let me die if that happens. I really don't want the treatment. Just let me go, okay?" I told her that I don't have a choice, and I have to call for help whether you want it or not, but I can certainly make her wishes known to the emergency physician in that scenario, and that dying like that would be absolutely horrible, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. She told me, "I've had enough of cancer. Any other way would suit me just fine by now. I guess we will see what happens. I've had a lot of people in a lot of pain tell me they would rather die in many different ways, but I felt like I saw in that moment when she finally decided she had had enough and considered having an anaphylactic reaction to our dye as a reasonable alternative to finally dying to cancer, and it really stuck with me." Valier is dead. Valier was the name of the pony who basically started an entire horseback riding experience. He gave me confidence like never before. He was so kind, so sweet, so gentle. He taught me how to canter. He taught me patience and how to jump. He was the best boy out there. The last time I saw him was the afternoon of my usual riding lesson. He was sick, so he wasn't being used for lessons. He passed away from a heart attack in his pasture that same night. I remember crying myself to sleep the night my mom told me he was gone, tearing up while writing this right now. Rest in peace, Valier, sweet boy. I miss you, and I regret not saying goodbye before I left to go home. I had an interview for an internship in Minnesota on a Friday. I'm from out of state, and I stayed at my Minnesota friend Amanda and Brutus' house the night before. All was well, we had a great time. I left for my interview and thought everything was fine. On Monday morning, my mom came to take me to lunch at college and told me that Brutus took his own life the day prior and that Amanda and their 4-month-old were there when it happened. They were unharmed. Brutus and I were close friends, and we had very open line of communication, so I never knew he was struggling with mental health issues. It's been 3 months, and I remember like it was yesterday. I hope time really does heal all wounds. Seems pale to what others went through, but here goes. I volunteered in a hospital, but because I was not trained, I wasn't allowed to do a lot of stuff. On one particular day, another volunteer accidentally threw away an expensive machine, don't ask me how, and because of that, I was very firmly told that I couldn't do anything unless I was told to do it. Later, I was told to take the blood pressure of all patients and ran into a doctor who just started to list me what I needed to do for a certain patient, speaking for a while until I could inform him that I wasn't the nurse and wasn't allowed to switch bandages or give meds. He looks at me with an almost disgusted look and goes, "So what are you even capable of doing?" And that pretty much crushed me. I cheated. On the bright side, it led me to a job where I heard one of the funniest things in my life. I'm a male secretary, and an older, like ready to retire old female secretary from another school called up. I answered her question, and she wanted to know who I was and what I did. I told her, and she said, "Well, call me sexist, but that just ain't right." I laugh about it to this day. When I said something about how I imagined my future and mentioned hopefully getting married one day, my mom got concerned and said in a sad voice she genuinely didn't believe I would ever be in a relationship. It really hurt because she always been a great mom, and I know she didn't mean anything bad, but she was 100% serious. And I know she was probably right. I'm disabled, ugly, gay, and I don't even have any in real life friends. I'm almost accepted the fact that I might just always be alone, but actually hearing it from someone close to me was definitely soul-crushing. You definitely won't find anyone if you resign to that fate, and you may look and still not find someone, but you should try. Be bold. You never know. Backstory. My grandmother was terminally ill. We thought we were really close to losing her a couple of times, but she pulled through with a lot of help from my mom, my sister, and myself. In November of 2018, she wasn't doing too well. We all knew it was coming and that she wasn't going to make it this time. Approximately 2 days before she passed, I went into her room and told her I loved her. She slowly opened her eyes and said, "I love you too." I was the last person she had spoken to. I think about this all the time and miss her so much. I saw a documentary, I don't even recall what it was about, but they were focusing on this family in a rural part of Eastern Europe or Southern Asia. There was a little girl in the family, and all she did was work. She couldn't go to school, and she just assisted her mother in doing all the necessary drudgery around the house. One of the filmmakers asked the girl what her secret dream was. She said, "To play." This story happened yesterday. I would like to start off by saying that I'm a transgender male, AFAB. I came out to my mother yesterday. When I told her, she immediately couldn't look at me, sighing, "I'm never going to call you Brendan, no matter what. You're always going to be my dead name at the end of the day." She did not care when I started crying, and said that she would never tell anyone about this. That's the most soul-crushing thing someone told me. It happened in high school, but after I got home one day, I got a text from my friend saying how she wasn't comfortable with me sharing her personal information and her address. I was confused and asked her to clarify what she meant since I didn't remember doing that, and she mentioned overhearing me talking to a guy in our class about where her and my other friends lived and how she was on her period. I had to explain that the guy had seen me and my friends in a shop and was confused since he knew we all lived far apart, since he was my friend's boyfriend for a bit. Never once did I mention their addresses, periods, or other information, but it was just the fact that she thought I had, that she didn't think she had misunderstood, that she didn't ask me to clarify, and instead went straight to her first judgment, that she apparently thought that was something I would do after being close to her for years and feeling so unwanted in our friendship already, as if it was some little broken piece that she didn't trust and didn't want around. That feeling that someone I trusted, despite all that, did not trust me, it absolutely crushed me. My ex-husband is a truck driver. We used to drive together as a team, but when I had our son, 4 months early by the way, I came off the road. 20 months later, I had our second child, and since he was gone most of the time, our phone calls became more like us venting to each other. Him about being on the road, which I knew all about having had been there, and me about my issues of raising our children by myself. After one such conversation, he said the one thing to me that I will never forget. "Well, that's what you signed up for." As if getting pregnant and having our children was a decision I made by myself, which was not the case. One of the reasons he's my ex-husband. My brother tried to comfort me after being yelled at by my parents for something that wasn't my fault by saying, "Someone has to be the scapegoat." My first girlfriend telling me that I should hang myself after a week or something after she told me she'll support me and help me go to a psychiatrist. My second girlfriend saying that she didn't want to introduce me to her friends because I talked too little. Same girlfriend saying that I have to cut along the wrist and not over it. My best friend saying that he didn't want to be my friend anymore after I told him I had suicidal thoughts.